Hello and welcome to Fireside Wisdom with Childless Elder Women. My name's Jodie Day. I'm your host. I'm the founder of Gateway Women, and it is my privilege to try and chair this panel of rowdy and opinionated nomocrones today. And what is a nomocrone? Well, nomo is a word I sort of created in 2012. It just means not mother. And crone, well, it's not actually an insult. Patriarchy's turned it into an insult, but it's not. It means crowned with time or someone with age. It has many different etymological reasons. It's just, unfortunately, all words that describe older women other than grandmother have become insults. Well, we don't agree with that here. So what we're going to be talking about today is, well, it's a huge topic, life after menopause, and in a way, in brackets, it's like, yes, it does exist. We're all here as proof of that. And we had about 85 questions come in from all of you. Thank you so much. And Anne-Marie's looking a bit stunned about that. And what I've done is I've grouped them into kind of themes, but they are quite rough themes. We will, if you feel that your question that you sent in isn't being answered, maybe put it in the Q&A box and we will see if we can get to it. We can't, with 85 questions, even grouped into themes, we're probably not going to get to all of them. So I think, first of all, I'm just going to introduce our amazing panel. So we have a special guest today. So top center on my celebrity squares is Catherine Emmanuel Delille, who is a dear old friend of mine from Canada. And she is a therapist for relationship assistance, a TRA, the founder of the award-winning Francophone website for women without children, Femmes Sans Enfants, and a licensed Gateway Women Reignite Weekend facilitator. She's been closely involved with Gateway Women for more than a decade and is also a World Childless Week ambassador. You'll be able to find all of the links to all of the panelists on the Gateway Women website. I'm going to put those details in the chat as soon as I get a chance to stop talking. So, and then top right is Kate Kaufman. And Kate Kaufman is in her early 70s. She's from the US. She's the author of Do You Have Kids? Life When the Answer is No. Kate's blog for Psychology Today, Unapparent, explores the lives and issues faced by the childless and child-free. She is childless due to failed infertility treatments and single after divorce. Okay, next row, Stella Duffy on the left. So Dr. Stella Duffy, OBE, to give her her full title, UK and New Zealand, is in her early 60s. She's a prolific and award-winning author, a yoga teacher, as well as an existential psychotherapist and lecturer. Her doctoral research was in the embodied experience of post-menopause, and she is currently rewriting her thesis for mass market publication with Virago, entitled Being the Change. Can't wait for it. Stella and her wife are childless due to cancer treatment and subsequent failed IVF. Middle of the screen, Sue Fagalde-Lick from America is in her early 70s and the author of the memoir and blog Childless by Marriage, the collection Love or Children When You Can't Have Both, as well as novels and poetry. Widowed from her second marriage, she is childless due to him not wanting more children. And in 2024, published her memoir, No Way Out of This, Loving a Partner with Alzheimer's. A musician and singer, she lives alone and writes a Substack on solo aging called Can I Do It Alone? Which is brilliant, by the way. Maria Hill, lovely to have you on the call, Maria. It's been a while. In the US, is in her mid-70s and is a writer, coach, healer, and transformative thinker, illuminating the connection between culture, identity, and the self. A World Childless Week ambassador, a longtime member and moderator of the Gateway Women Childless Collective online communities, and the founder of Sensitive Evolution. She is also the author of The Emerging Sensitive, a guide for finding your place in the world. Her Substack, A Different Dream, focuses on the current cultural shift from hierarchical to egalitarian systems. Can't come quick enough. Bottom left is Sue Newsome, also back after a long break. Lovely to have you back. In the UK, she's in her early 60s and is a psychosexual therapist, coach, and educator. And in 2013 was named Sex Therapist of the Year by Outsiders, the UK charity that provides sex and relationship support to physically and socially disabled people. Partnered and childless by circumstance herself, Sue has been a long-time member of Gateway Women. And dear Anne-Marie McQueen, who is a special guest for this. Anne-Marie McQueen, Canada and also UAE, is 55 and a Canadian health and wellness journalist with over 30 years of experience and the founder of Hot Flash Inc., a weekly research letter, podcast, and Substack to bridge the widening gap between mainstream and holistic menopause care. She is also North America's first dedicated menopause and midlife columnist, writing a twice-monthly column for Canada's Post Media newspaper group. Thank you to my amazing Nomo Crone panelists and Katrine Emmanuel, who's not quite a crone yet, but she's got crone level of wisdom and she comes with a very special experience to this topic. And I think what we'll do is we'll just do a quick round of my menopause. We'll do my menopause bingo. So, Katrine Emmanuel, would you like to share a little bit about your experience of menopause, which is a unique and really important one for this discussion?
Thank you, Jody. Yes, of course, it's very unique indeed, because I learned at the age of 14, I was experiencing early menopause, even before puberty. So which makes this experience very weird. As you know, you feel estranged when you're childless or apart from other women. So I had that feeling very early on in my life, being different, being weird, being apart, isolated. So this was the experience I have had with the word menopause first. That came like a big big thing for me, because I never knew you could experience that at such an early age. And then I had to try to find my way through this. They prescribed me hormones so that I would not continue to be in menopause. And then trying to find my place as a woman, and learning very, very early on I would never be able to have children is such a weird, very weird and experience. And not a lot of women talk about it publicly, so it feels very important that you invite me to this, to participate in this webinar, because I could say I lived through a triple whammy. So not being a mom, not having a partner, and then not experiencing menopause at the same time as the other women. That's a weird experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Katrine Emmanuel, and thank you for being so open about it and being such an advocate for this. It's, we had quite a few questions, people saying, please don't forget surgical menopause, early menopause. So thank you. Kate.
Yes. Thanks for having me here. It's been a while and it's so nice to see everyone's faces and everyone's names around the world. Let's see. I got my first period at 14, my last one at 40, and I'm now 73. One of the things I found delightful about prepping for this one is like I have to actually go and remember some things, because now it's been long enough that it feels like a lifetime ago. And so for those of you who are seeped in it, there is a beyond that. I know we're going to talk about some of the delightful aspects of it as well. In menopause, perimenopause, I experienced every single symptom except the only one I wanted, because I'm always cold. I thought hot flashes would be pretty cool. No, pretty warm. I think I had 2 or 3 of them, but everything else, I think as a result of a lot of the infertility drugs, I was psychologically slammed. So I got psychological help. I had so many hormones and infusions of every whatever it could possibly be that I held off as long as I could to go on hormones, which In retrospect, I regret because the question I was asked was, are you feeling you need to be brave about this? Because if that's what you're feeling, you don't. And that opened the door to me to say, yes, I can do this as help. It's okay to have help. Um, and let's see. I think that's it. I think that's pretty covers mine.
Thank you so much, Kate. Lovely to have you here. Stella.
Yeah, hello everybody. Great to be here. I'm 62. I've been menopausal since I was 36. When I was 36, my wife and I were trying to have children with our baby father. We were just about to do the first insemination. We knew that all three of us were fertile. And on Friday morning, January the 14th, 2000, I woke up with a 3 centimeter tumor sticking out of my right breast. It wasn't sticking out the day before. So it took a very long time because I was too young to have breast cancer. And I didn't have it in my family, neither do 70% of women, for them to work out that I had breast cancer. When it was finally diagnosed, anyway, it was rubbish. So I had 6 months of chemotherapy and I was put on Zoladex with the hope of saving my fertility. A, the chemotherapy ruined my fertility anyway. B, the Zoladex put me into an immediate menopause. And anyone else who's on in the chat or in the participants who've had chemo or hormone-induced menopause knows how brutal these can be. I was menopausal immediately. I have a recollection of being down the road from here, because I still live in the same place, going to the GP, having the Zoladex injection, crossing the road to walk home, and being hit by my hot flushes 40 an hour minimum for months and months and months. But actually, combined with chemo, it was all just, it's very bad. So symptomologically, my menopause was appalling in terms of the vasomotor symptoms. But actually, what was so much harder was that it was making me infertile. That the cancer treatment that was supposed to save my life was making me infertile, just at the point we were trying to have children. And then, as it turned out, the cancer treatment did save my life, but it didn't stop it recurring because it came back 14 years later. So I've been interested in postmenopause since I was 37, because that's when I became postmenopausal. And I do believe that there is so much else available for us, but the world needs to stop telling us our lives end at menopause.
Thank you, Stella. Sue for Galdilik.
Gosh, my story's not quite as dramatic as all that. It's so good to see you all again. And Catherine, I met you a long time ago, and it's so good to see you again. So I started having periods at 13 and stopped 40 years later at 53. I had the world's worst periods, terrible, what do you call it? PMS, terrible PMS. You know, my moods were all over the map and I felt horrible. And then I had just totally debilitating cramps. So menopause was a huge relief in a lot of ways. As far as the menopausal symptoms, it happened at about the same time that I was being diagnosed with Graves' disease. And many of the symptoms are similar. That is a hyperthyroid disorder. So you get hot flashes with both. And truly, when I started the Graves, I thought that was menopause because I was hot flashing. I was a nervous wreck. I was very anxious, but it was Graves, and very serious treatment for that. But I got through it. When I started approaching my last periods, my male gynecologist said, "Well, of course, we will put you on hormones immediately." And I said, "Wait, no, I want to do this naturally." And he was appalled. But I did, and I think that was all right. Although now I have osteoporosis and I wonder. But overall, menopause has made me feel better physically and emotionally too, more even, as opposed to crazed for 10 days a month. So it's not too bad for me.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Maria.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. So anyway, my menopause was actually kind of maybe anticlimactic. My last period was in my early 50s, and I really didn't notice a lot. And the reason for that, I think, is my use of Ayurveda. I get blood clots. It's hereditary from both sides of my family. And I had a very bad case of blood clots when I was in my 20s. I was hospitalized for a month. The clots went to my lungs several times, and I had to have surgery. They put in a filter to keep the clots from coming up to my lungs or my heart or wherever. And when I got out of bed for the first time at the end of a month, I couldn't walk, and it took me 6 months. And because it's hereditary, I figured I better do something about it. And so I ended up discovering Ayurveda and using the herbs and the diet and all of that kind of thing. And it can be on the strict side. I'm not perfectly strict about it, but I think having spent so many years taking the various herbs and all, I think it balanced out my system such that I didn't really experience a lot of symptoms when menopause finally came. I thought to myself, okay, that's the end of it. And, I just kind of let it go and that was it. And so I guess I'm very fortunate in that regard. But I think Ayurveda is a wonderful tool for people who want to early on try to minimize their symptoms and also improve their health as they get older so they can enjoy getting older. I'm 77 now, and I think it has helped me in aging as well. So
Thank
for
you.
what it's worth.
Lovely to have you back on the panel. Sue Newsom.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Sue.
So my menopause story, I started my menstrual bleed when I was 10 years old, and my periods just stopped suddenly when I was 50. There was no sort of warning. There was no change to my menstrual cycle. So it was really interesting because my period stopped. And then when I reflected that I'd maybe had about 18 months prior to that, when life had felt very different, how I was engaging with the world. And so that showed me that I had been perimenopausal for about 18 months, but I only sort of realized that after my period stopped. So I've been through my menopause for 14 years now, and like you, Sue, I had quite intense premenstrual symptoms. So I was relieved to not be. I felt like I was being the victim of my hormones every single month, and they took me on what felt like quite a roller coaster. So it was there was a sort of an evening or a leveling out, although other symptoms I had to kind of pay attention to. But I really appreciated being released from the monthly cycle of my periods.
Thank you, Sue. Anne-Marie.
Oh, I turned my audio off. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
How do you sum it up? I mean, it just feels like it went absolutely on forever. I thought I'd probably go through menopause in my 70s or something, it just seemed like such a far off day. And then I hit my 40s and I was over here and things just started to go sideways for me for most of my 40s when I didn't know what was going on. So it started with like terrible nightmares that I was dying and just like panic attacks, and I would almost have tantrums. I was very, very, very anxious. I developed a fear of flying. I, uh, I was in management at that point in time. I was running an arts and life department, and I just remember being really paranoid and having issues with people on my staff and just like ruminating and ruminating. All of this stuff dovetailed with like life stuff, like I had a live-in relationship at the time and I was hoping to have children with him, and that was falling apart. And then we had a pretty serious illness in my family. So it's hard to unravel it all. And I didn't know until I skipped a period when I was like 47 that's what it was. And so I did a lot of work during that time, did a lot of therapy, figured a lot of things out. But once I realized I was going through perimenopause and I realized what perimenopause even was, because even though I was a health and wellness journalist, I didn't really even know what it was. I had written about it in my 30s, when the boomers were going through it. And so I felt really silly and then I wanted to learn about it. So I put a Google alert and I I didn't like the information I got back at that time. I don't know how I'd feel now, but the content was very fear-mongering or designed to make someone money, or the Daily Mail kind of, you're expiring type thing, which is ironic because they're doing some really good menopause coverage now. Anyway, I started a newsletter. I didn't have any idea. I just thought I could do so much with this topic. And in a way, I think I just created longevity for myself in my career, that I could just sort of keep writing. I read just a chapter in a book about menopause and what happens to your body, and your luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone rise, and your actual hormonal makeup is much like that day in your menstrual cycle when you're on fire. And I thought, okay, well, if that's where I'm headed, like, then this is going somewhere good. And that's what I feel has sort of ended up happening. And, life's not perfect, but at 55, I'm through it. I'm 2 years through it. And I don't think it happens all at once. I still think I'm going through changes. And I was talking to someone really smart the other day, and she said she thought it took her about 3 or 4 years out for the dust to settle. But I feel I'm almost a bit psychic now. So that's one really good thing that's happened.
Thank you. And thank you, Anne-Marie, for being with us. It's really lovely to have you on. And I suppose briefly mine, I'm 60, nearly 61. I'd never even heard of the word perimenopause. I just thought menopause was something that happened when you were 51 and your period stopped. That was as much as I knew. So I had and I think my 40s, I probably started my peri about 38. It began with really vicious insomnia, which has never fully gone away. I still manage insomnia. But like so many of us, there were so many things happening. My marriage broke down. I was coming to terms with I was grieving my childlessness. I was in deep menopause. I lost my career. My personality changed. I became an incredibly anxious person. Lots and lots of things were happening. And interestingly, my anxiety got to such a state that I just had to leave London. I was living in London at the time. And I went to stay with a friend in France, and she had 2 older women staying with her. There was a woman 5 years older than me, 10 years older than me, and 15 years older than me. And they said, "You're going through the menopause." And it was just like, and when I went back to my doctor in London, my GP, who was about 30, and she had put me on different antidepressants. None of them worked because actually I wasn't depressed. I said, I'd like to have my bloods tested and this, that, and the other. And I went back a week later, and she said, "Well, that was a bit of a brainwave, And I was 46 at the time. And I went on to hormone therapy, which did work for me. But I went back 2 weeks later, having done a bit of research, and I went, why was it a brainwave? I'm 46, sleep problems, weight gain, personality changes, hot flushes, periods slowing down. And I said, if you don't mind me asking, how much training did you have on the menopause? And I found out that she had, and this is still the case in the UK, half a day's training on the contraindications of prescribing HRT to someone with a family history of breast cancer. That is their entire training on the menopause. So unless a doctor has been through it herself, or he or she has taken an interest in it, there is an awful lot of ignorance out there. So I'm 12 years postmenopausal, and it's still kicking my ass. So I'm sorry to say that, Anne-Marie. The transitions keep coming, and I think it took me a while to understand that menopause wasn't an event. It's actually the way my body is going to be for the rest of my life. It's like, I think I kept thinking it was maybe because of the way the media and everything, that it was a sort of illness state. And it's like, no, I'm now postmenopausal for the rest of my life. This is not a thing that's going to stop. This is now who I am. This is now who my body is and who my psyche is. And although physically it's been tough, mentally and emotionally, I love it. Really love it. Yeah. So we had 85 questions sent in, and we're going to look at them in themes. And I think we'll start with themes around sensuality, sexuality, and our erotic selves. We had questions around what are our sexual selves as we age? Will my sex drive come back? Difficulties having penetrative intercourse because of a lack of hormones, feeling invisible to men if you're heterosexual, that whole kind of invisibility piece around it. And I'm going to open the floor to Auntie Stella.
Okay, shut me up at some point because I can go on about this one for hours. So in my research, I interviewed a mix of women who were black, white, mixed races, queer, straight, bisexual, physically disabled, not disabled, neurodiverse, not neurodiverse. Why are we saying neurotypical? Let's just go with not neurodiverse. Like a wide range of mothers, not mothers, stepmothers.
Yeah.
All of them said sex changed in and during menopause and after menopause. Some of them loved that it changed. For some of them, it was immensely freeing. They found themselves able to have different conversations with their partners, male partners and female partners. There's a great paper, I think it's by Deborah Winterton, that actually looks at lesbian relationships. And what she says in it is that because I've been out since I was 18, so I'm a very old dyke. Now, because lesbian relationships we have to say to each other, what do you like? We cannot assume you've got a cock, you've got a vagina, I'll put one in the other. Because we have to be honest with each other from the start about what we want, we've got past all of that, oh, this is how sex is done. And I really feel for straight people. You straight people have been shown since practically birth that you do it this way. What we know is that 70% of women do not have vaginal orgasms. That's latest research. But the vast majority of men want penetrative sex. Again, latest research. The men aren't stopping wanting it. What we then have to find is how do those of you who are in heterosexual relationships or heterosexual not relationships but wanting to fuck men, how do you have that conversation that says, this is still what I want, parts of my body still want it, you are going to have to be differently careful with me, we need to use this lube or that lube, we need to take care of this body of mine. Just have to say the term vaginal atrophy is evil. The term vaginal atrophy means, is your vagina strong or large enough to accommodate an erect penis? That's what it means. I don't know about the rest of you, but judging your body by can an erect penis fit in it is not how. I don't know any straight woman who wants to judge her body by men's bodies. That's just daft. We can get to a place where we can have conversations. I appreciate it's harder if you're single and wanting to have sex as a more casual hookup. But even so, it's about the conversations. If we can have the conversations, there's a beautiful paper, Amelia McCormack, 2021, that interviewed older Iranian women about their sex lives in postmenopause. And the older Iranian women said two really important things. And given how white we all are, I really want to name the first one, which is that for very many women, menopause is a release from unwanted pregnancy. And though we are all here because we are childless, whether by choice or by circumstance, we can't ignore the fact that for the global majority, for women in poverty, it is a release from unwanted pregnancy. And I think that the menopause story has become so white, so middle class, at least in Britain. I'm pretty certain it's similar in the States and Canada, that we forget to talk about the women who do not have our privilege. So there's that. But the other thing that the Iranian women said was that it was the first time in their lives they got to talk about the sex they wanted, not how we have sex to make children or how we have sex not to make children. That's the only conversation they'd been able to have. As soon as they were freed from it, they had conversations with their husband. Not all of them, not every relationship became beautiful, but the ones where they were able to talk did. And it's tiny steps. This is from a couples therapist perspective. You begin the conversations gently and kindly. There, that's my long thinking about. Oh, also, for those of us who've had breast cancer, there are an Anis Mukherjee in Britain, at least, who is a endocrinologist. Endocrinologists are who you need, not your GP. Endocrinologists know how hormones work. Anis Mukherjee's website has amazing stuff, super useful for those of us who've had breast cancer and might want to use an estrogen-based lube. There are some, I'm not wanting to give out false promise, but some that might be okay depending on your type of breast cancer. Go check her out.
Will you put that name in the chat,
I
Stella?
will.
And we'll speak now to Kate and then Sue Newsom.
Okay, so it's to me. Okay. Let's see. I was divorced at 64. I dated for 3 or 4 years, and I repartnered at 69. And I did not have a lusty, full sex life in my 34-year marriage. And so going out into the world as this very, not naive, because I had plenty of experience in my early years, but not naive, but very unsure of myself sexually. Made dating very odd and somewhat threatening. And to Stella's point about having conversations, the idea of actually including what I wanted, which I'd done to a little extent in my earlier years, was very scary, threatening, and what I have found to have continued to have the vocabulary and the self-awareness to be able to say, hey, this. And so what I do now is I include what I know, and then I become curious and I ask my partner to become curious. And that has become quite a sexy thing to do, I must say. One of the two of the resources that both I and my partner found extremely helpful are Emily Nagoski's two books. One, "Come as You Are," that's written specifically for women, the woman, and then "Come Together," which is written for, again, the woman, but for the partners too. And we read those aloud and took some information from them that was very illuminating and helpful and seeded all kinds of wonderful conversations. I will say that I am experiencing now the best sex I have ever had in my life. It is continually astonishing to me that this is the life that I am living right now, and I am grateful for it every single moment of my life. I love coconut oil. And I would say to the penetrative sex element of it, being in my 70s, my partner's 3 years older than I, he has his issues as well. And so the idea that penetrative sex is the only thing, it's been very important to me in my past life. But now I would say maybe 10% of our sexual activity includes penetrative sex. And I have come to really appreciate that. And the only other thing I'll add to that is from a tissue and a discomfort standpoint, with consistent, gentle, kind, understanding, and responsive activity, the vaginal walls do relearn, and they do re-stimulate themselves in ways that has also been very shocking. So I yield the floor to the other wonderful hands that
Thank you. I just wanted to say to those of you who are not currently or ever in a relationship that, you know, sexual intimacy and sexual identity includes those of us who are not currently sexually active too. And quite a few of our panelists are not currently in relationships. And so I just want you to know that you are included in this. And maybe perhaps one of our solo panelists could speak to that a little if they want to as well. Because I think our erotic selves are very, very important, you know, and it's a part of our identity that exists always, whether we're having some kind of sex or not. So Sue Newsome, then Anne-Marie, and then Sue Fagaldi-Lick.
Okay, so following on from what Stella and Kate have said, I want to just speak into the opportunity that I feel menopause has given me. And it's actually, although I am in a relationship, it's been much more around my curiosity and my interest in myself. And I think what I've really needed is to shift the idea that somehow my body's not as good as, you know, because my body doesn't respond in the same way. But to actually reframe that so that actually this is different and this is a whole new adventure. I think self-discovery is just such an important part of our self-expression, and whether we're in relationship or not. And I know that for me, it's like I can find eroticism in such varied ways, that it's not about my attachment or my engagement necessarily with another person now. It's much more about me and how I can find eroticism in nature. I can find it, certainly in literature. By Jove, I'm having the most amazing time reading saucy, sexy literature. It's really working, and imagery as well. And I'm also finding that it's like my imagination's opened up, because things have changed. I'm not engaging in the way that I used to before my menopause, in that I could almost take it for granted that my body would work and respond in a certain way. It doesn't anymore. But so that's certainly my experience, and I wanted to share that, particularly for people who are listening who are not necessarily in relationship at the moment. So yeah, it's if you are inspired, then I think self-discovery is a great way. It's a great way to go.
Thank you, Sue. Anne-Marie.
Well, I could talk about this forever because I'm going through this whole shift in myself now. First of all, in the late stages of perimenopause, my estrogen was through the roof, and I was dating like crazy, like from COVID on. I was driving up to Dubai and dating everyone and having a lot of great sex. And I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that. And I had a lot of fun. And, I've had long relationships and short relationships, but I sort of, about a year ago, I realized that I wanted to stop dating until I stopped some of the things that I kept doing. Like, you keep attracting the same person, and I kept doing the same thing. So I haven't really been sexually active since then, but I have opportunities. I mean, I have fellows from before that I could be, and I'm not. And I've also noticed that since I've gone through menopause, my desire is like, I just don't feel like it, but I don't want that kind of sex. I don't want to have sex that's just sex anymore. And that's something that I think is probably I always wanted, but I couldn't admit it to myself. So I was dating, and when do you sleep with him? When do you not? I wrote newspaper columns about this. I think I had sex that didn't mean anything when I really wanted sex that meant something. And I think I'm really interested in this now. I just feel like I won't be able to. And the other thing that I've spent a lot of time thinking about is the sex that I did. I've had great sex. I've had, terrible sex. I've had and everything in between. But I think a lot of the time I was, like many women, like, I wasn't putting myself first, and I was over functioning, and I was overly concerned with what the man wanted. And we see that on television, and you're sort of performing and you're doing positions, what am I doing? Why am I being whipped around, like, and not saying anything? I didn't have a voice in sex. So now I'm doing some things to I'm going to read the books that you mentioned, Kate, like, I'm really excited. I have one of them here. I'm taking a vagina kung fu course from Kim Anime that I bought 4 years ago. I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to try to figure out what I want, so that when I'm with someone again, I can really have my voice and say that. I don't know if you've seen that show, Dying for Sex. It's so good. It was a podcast, and like, there's a scene where a guy asks what she wants, and she says, "Oh, like, never mind." And she sort of reaches for him. And I just sort of cried because it really resonated. So this is part of the journey of menopause, just realizing all these things, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. And Sue, I mean, your experience, you were widowed young.
Right.
And in your book, you write about sort of suddenly, not having sex anymore.
That's true. That's true. And, my menopause kind of coincided with my husband's Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So he was finding it more and more difficult to have an erection. He had the desire, but he just couldn't perform. And frankly, I was getting so dry that it hurt like crazy. So we kind of stopped. And I have not had sex with another person in many years now. I'm not dating and don't expect to be in the near future. But I'll be honest, I pleasure myself, and I'm having the best orgasms of my life, because I know what I want, and I'm still horny. That didn't go away from me.
Well, I didn't expect us to go there. That's just fantastic. Thank you. We're racing through the time. I want to talk about postmenopausal zest/life audit, which is the kind of random name I gave to a big group of questions that came in that cover things like curious about thoughts about anger and rage. Does the rage part go away or does it stay? Do you ever feel yourself post-menopause? Do you happier? I love the notion of not having to play nice. What freedoms can come? Does it get easier once the presumed fertile years are over? And then a kind of a feeling of a midlife transition and a later life transition. Who am I becoming? This sense of, I think, a little bit of kind of worry about losing who we were, but also some kind of like, what's to come? Can you give us any ideas about what it's like to be a post-menopausal woman? And I have to say, I think I said it before, I love it. I also love the invisibility cloak that has come with it. I didn't always. It was a shock at first in my mid-40s when, you know, after a lifetime of just randomly having the looks that looking fertile, basically, as Stella said before, because that's what that male gaze is about. It's having thick hair and a slim waist, perhaps, but just something about you says in your hormones, I am potentially fertile. I actually wasn't, but I looked it. And then that fades away. And we have to reframe our identity as, well, who am I if I am not that? And as women who are already kind of working out, who am I if I'm not a mother? This can be like another part of that, or it can be a real shock, or it can be really helpful. But I actually love being in my 60s. I loved my 50s. I think they were my favorite decade. My 60s, I'm only 1 year in, so I can't say it yet. But I found the confidence and the clarity, and I would say I feel more like I did before puberty. The way I dress like a tomboy again. And if I could climb trees, I would climb them again. But, you know, my interests and my kind of courage, my kind of, I mean, it's a strange word to use, my spunkiness, my kind of just lots of things, my curiosity about the world, lots of things about me remind me of me at 10 and me at 11. So that, I don't know if anyone else relates to that. So who would like to speak about what it's like to be postmenopausal? Kate.
It's easy to raise your hand. It's hard to get your mouth working again, which actually relates to that. Someone fairly early on, as I was going through perimenopause, characterized it, it was so helpful. They characterized it appropriately as the opposite of going into puberty, which for me reframed it as, okay, I'm going backwards. I'm going to end up at puberty. And at puberty, that was pretty cool because the whole rest of my life is ahead of me. And so it gave me a kind of a backhanded permission to really evaluate what it was that I wanted and how I wanted to be in the world. Then I got smacked with that invisibility, which was weird because I'm quite tall, and to become invisible when you've always been quite apparent was very odd. Extremely comforting on the one hand, but throwing yourself into the dating world in your 70s, late 60s, 70s was very odd to have to find that again. And the way that I found it that now I use, because I feel very much licensed to be my true self. And so sometimes I characterize myself as an audacious elder. I had another word and I forget what that is now. But I lead with my personality, even when someone's looking through me, if I want to try and have some sort of an interaction with him. The person I was closest with through COVID was a guy that worked at Trader Joe's. And I told him recently that he was my big buddy because I got to be my true self with him and not be invisible. So that's what I have to say about that. And it is delightful on the other side.
Who else would like to join us? Katrine, Emmanuel, and then Stella. Can you unmute, love?
The question is interesting, and I'm kind of in a weird space that I have to share with you. For me, the experience of menopause will come when I decide it, meaning it will come when I stop taking the hormones I'm taking. It's kind of weird because I get to choose when it comes. Isn't that a weird experience? I'm just, as I'm aging, I'm now 49. I'm like, am I ready for this? When will I be ready for this? When do I decide I want to stop taking these hormones? Because benefits to it.
Yeah.
Here, everybody loses lots of things like lubrication, and it's kind of scary for me, but in the same way, feels kind of empowering to be able to decide when I jump into this stage of my life. And I'm very thankful because this just came up in my mind just listening to you. I felt like sharing because it's such a weird, in particular experience. So, yeah, thank you for it.
And one shared by so many, so many other women who have had your experience and are having it right now. So that's something that never occurred to me. I'm so grateful to you for being here and bringing that up. Yeah. Thank you, CE. Stella and then Maria.
Well, I absolutely echo this idea of returning to pre-puberty. So one of the things that came up in my research and that I say of myself a lot, I mean, I didn't feel like it at 36 when it was all going to hell, obviously. But what I get now from my postmenopause is I do feel like I have the energy and the don't give a fuckness of my 9-year-old self. I would be climbing trees if I didn't also have a hip replacement, a knee replacement, another hip replacement on the way. And that osteoporosis has got nothing to do with menopause. That's got to do with chemotherapy, unfortunately. Just to add, strength training is really good, whatever we're doing. And I heartily recommend the hormones can help, but not everybody. They don't help every single body. So while you might be told that the hormones are going to stop osteoporosis, we don't know about the brain stuff, not for sure. We don't know about the heart protection, not for sure. We do know it can be useful for osteoporosis, but actually strength training is just as good. And, if you've got both, go for it. But strength training really matters. The thing that really showed up in my research and in my experience, because it took me decades, I think, to go, oh, fuck it, I've got to embrace this. It's where I am. It's very similar to my childless experience. And I said this last year, for those of you who were at the conference in Chester, when we can agree with the life we have, rather than keep fighting against the life we have and going, not accept, because accept is hard. And that's because the Buddhist translations haven't come into English very well. This term of acceptance sounds like consenting or being content with. But if this is the life we have, when we can agree with it, so much of the fighting energy that we have to go, I don't like it, it's horrible, I hate it, it's too painful. So much of that fighting energy can go into, well, what the fuck do I want? And how can I look after me? And how can I get a sex life like Kate Kaufman's? So much of that energy that we put into, not just me, because I work on this with my clients, but I do know that I put so much energy into my internalized pronatalism. And if I could have let that go sooner, I could have been putting my energy into who I am now.
Rather than who you're not.
Rather than who I'm not. Rather than who the world does tell me I should be, but the world's wrong, because that's not my truth in this body. And just before, I just want to say, this body that all of you are sitting in, all of you I can see, all of you I can't see, this was your body when you were in pre-puberty. It's the same body. You didn't get a different body. 5-year-old Stella was not smaller than me and like inside a Russian doll. 5-year-old Stella was Stella up to the edge of her skin. You at 55, you at 75, you at 85, you're you up to the edge of your skin. The more we can love that, the more we can find the zest that the world would like us not to have because it wants older women to be silent. But fuck them, give fewer fucks, grab it. That's what I have to say about that.
Thank you, Stella. And actually, something that was really healing for me when I was kind of grieving my childlessness was when I kind of, because I had such a hatred for my body, because I felt it had let me down. And I realized that this skin is this, would have been the skin of my children. It would have made the skin of my children, and I would have adored the skin of my children. And I started to realize that actually I needed to really thank my body and be compassionate towards all that it had been through, rather than seeing it as a product that had let me down or was defective or in some way, wasn't sort of showing up in the right way. I had to shift my response to my body to one of gratitude, not kind of thinking, wow, you're amazing, I love every bit of you. I never got that far. I just thought, thank you, thank you for being you, and I do write that in my book. It's an exercise called saying thank you. It's very simple, very profound. I wanted to move us on to talking about grief because it did come up and I've just mentioned it, and I think Stella kind of touched on it too. I think I wrote an essay in 2014 about the childless menopause, and I actually called it a death you survive. For some people, for some childless women, it's not until their periods stop that they completely give up hope that one day they will get pregnant or one day they will have the opportunity to get pregnant, even though it's very unlikely in the years running up to that it is possible. Denial and hope, they're very, very closely linked. So you can arrive sometimes at menopause and you reach this wall of grief that you are not going to be a mother in this lifetime and with this body. And that can be a huge thing to have to navigate at the same time as your body changing, slowly becoming an older version of yourself, dealing with the personality changes and the emotional changes that come as the hormone. So I want to say, if you are really struggling with your grief, it can really come back at menopause, or it can really arrive at menopause, because you're also grieving your identity, as well as the non-motherhood identity. You can also be grieving this sense that the patriarchy just wants you to disappear. But the fact is that I think women without children, and particularly older women without children, one of the reasons it wants us to disappear is we're really awkward. We're actually really powerful. So shame is the most powerful tool of social control, which is why there's so much shame around an aging female body. But actually, we have a lot of power, but we need to do a lot of grief work to kind of reclaim that power. So I guess if someone could speak to maybe the grief of realizing you're not going to have grandchildren as well, maybe what it's like to find that the grief that maybe you thought you dealt with at menopause starts to return, to kind of for a return visit. It'd be lovely to hear about that. Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I'm grieving everything. It's a really interesting time. I changed a lot in the last 5 years. I have friends that have fallen away, and so I kind of don't know. I'm sort of putting my social life back together again. So that's interesting. And I'm trying, you get older, so you remind yourself like nothing is permanent. Like when all my friends started getting married and having kids at 30, I remember thinking, oh my God, I have no one to hang out with. And that didn't last, So I'm meeting new cool people, but I'm grieving everything. I find myself just thinking of the most random things because I never let myself have like deep emotions about stuff. I never understood how sensitive I am and possibly neurodivergent and how hard things were. And so I'm thinking back all through my life, and I just turned 55, and Jody was kind enough to say that was difficult for her too. But I lost my father and I grieved my mother, who I lost at 27. It was a double whammy, and I couldn't explain that to anyone how that was. I lost both of them, and like loves and really hard things, relationships that turned out to be with someone who was not who I thought he was. These things are coming back, and it's not like I just didn't ever let myself deeply grieve much of anything until recent years. So I'm not surprised that when I'm in my quiet moments, those feelings come up and I just let them go through me. And then it's like, here it is again. Because I don't think, how can you possibly, like, people don't really understand grieving anyway. It's a very layered thing.
Mm.
So yeah, there's a lot of grief and a lot of grief about not having children for sure. I don't know about the grandchildren thing, but I've heard I don't think I'm going to have those kind of friends that are going to, speak anymore, like the way when I was younger, the way that some women can be about motherhood. I also noticed when I got okay with not having kids sometime in my late 40s, I found I didn't hear the things this
Mm.
here that I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Like I used to
Totally.
think people were so mean about it. And then all of a sudden in my late 40s, I noticed no one was saying mean things. And I'm like, did they stop saying them? Or am I just, they're not mean and they never were. I don't know. So
I swear, Anne-Marie, I had this thing that I worked at that just I got to the point where I was really, really fine with people asking me anything about my childlessness. Yeah. No one asked me anymore. It just I sense that I was putting out a different vibe, but I am also a lot more, confident and comfortable around other people's kids, and also the kind of the mean crew that I had to deal with in my 30s and 40s, they're long gone. Yeah. And I do think at menopause, when we become perhaps more truly ourselves than we've been for a while, and a lot of the social games and the performative aspects perhaps of our femininity, we maybe go, I'm not doing that anymore. I think a lot changes in our social group around us as well. Yeah. So we have we got like 1 minute left, actually. So what I'd like us to do in our last minute is, and I didn't warn you of this because I've only just had this idea. What would we like to say to our younger self about menopause? So what would it have been helpful to have heard from an older woman when we were younger? Yeah, look, we've all got our thinking caps on. So do you want to, rather than go one by one, do you want to raise your hands, or should we just jump in? Yeah. I think what I'd like my younger self to know is that it's not an event. It's a natural stage of life, that my body knows how to do it. And I think I'd like her to know that she's going to love who she is as an older woman. And yes, there are losses along the way, but there are so many amazing gains. Sue?
I think I just want her to know that perimenopause is a pain in the ass. When your periods, you don't know when they're going to come, how much there's going to be there, is this it, is this it, is this it? But when it does finally stop, what Jody said, it's good. You'll feel better. You'll be glad. So just relax.
Thanks, Sue. Stella, and then Sue Newsome.
My experience in postmenopause is that I am closer now to my friends who are mothers than I have been for decades. We are much more in the same place. Partly that's because I'm not so worried about I don't fit in. Partly it's because they're not so worried about their kids, and having a 25-year-old living at home is a pain in the ass. There is something that I have found really wonderful about this place where I feel like we're coming back together again. And I have embraced it and worked towards it, and I absolutely love it. And I get that if I was saying this to my newly childless, not by choice self, I would find that impossible to believe. So those of you who are there hearing this, thinking it's impossible to believe, please notice how many of us here nodded our heads. Yeah. Eventually, the world changes with you. Yeah.
Thank you, Stella. Sue Newsome.
So I would say to my younger self, not to be frightened of the menopause, that it's the start of a new adventure. And that that my life is going to be different. It's not going to be less. It's just going to be different.
Thank you. Kate and Katrine Emmanuel and Anne-Marie.
Oh, Dorothy,
There you go.
It's an excellent question, and it's a very touching question. I would say to my younger self that the holes that are in your heart right now will be filled in different ways than you can ever imagine that they would come, and that you will recognize that the abuse and the neglect that you suffered for so many years of your life didn't belong to you, it belonged to some other people, and that you get to occupy your life in the way that you want to, largely. And you can accept the ways that appear in your life. You can accept them more readily with gentleness and kindness.
Thank you, Kate. It's very, very touching. Thank you. Katrine Emmanuel.
I just feel like telling the women that have experienced the same thing as I did. You're not losers. You're not weirdos. You're just experiencing a very particular journey. And if you feel like connecting with me, since you saw my face, a bit about my experience, I'm there for you. Got your back. And this experience has also connected me with women I would have never known if I hadn't kind of embraced it. So please do not stay isolated and connect.
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. Anne-Marie and then Maria.
I would say, I know you've walked around with a lot of pain and you've been pretending that you haven't. And perimenopause is going to bring all that up and you're not going to be able to ignore it. And you're going to slowly, bit by bit, sort through all of it. And by the end, you're going to have a pretty good idea of why you were the way you were. And then you're going to like yourself a lot more.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Maria.
Okay. I felt invisible from the time I was very, very young. And to me, women being brought into this still patriarchal system, they're probably going to be, I would say, sentenced to invisibility actually when they're quite young. I mean, just because you look attractive doesn't mean you're not invisible. And so, I mean, when I look at who I'm becoming, you know, I see a person that actually came into the world as someone totally different from what was on offer. And that's the person I have to, you know, bring back into the world. And that's kind of an interesting question because I was that young when I was already feeling invisible. And I think that our whole journey includes a certain amount of invisibility through our adult years, whether you're, even as mothers, you are somewhat invisible in this system. So to me, once you hit menopause, you're really starting to come into your own. This is really your real life, I think, that is being offered to you. And so my advice is to, yes, there's quite a bit of anger at how much that you lose along the way, but there is a huge chance for you to claim your life the way you really should have been able to claim it a long time ago. And I think that's part of what advances women in taking their place in the world. So I would tell people, make sure you take really good care of yourself. Give yourself the attention to your physical body and your other needs, starting as young as you can start, because it will help you to enjoy this rejuvenation that occurs after menopause, and you may have a wonderful time then.
Very wise, Maria. Very wise, everyone. Did everyone get a chance to speak to their younger self then? Yeah. Okay. I was so kind of in the stories, I wasn't kind of keeping track. Thank you. Thank you so much to all of my amazing panelists, and thank you also to everyone, all of the participants, the lovely conversation that's been going on in the chat. I can't wait to watch this back and absorb all this wisdom again. So I am Jodie Day, and we are the Nomo Crones. And we will be back again. And don't forget, you can see all of our, I think, 20 or 18 or something previous conversations that we've recorded over the last 5 years on the Gateway Women website. Just go gateway-women.com, click on Childless Elder Women, and all of them are there. And we have covered some amazing topics. Also want to let you know, if you're not already a member of the Childless Collective, I host and co-host with a few others the Childless Elder Women group within the Childless Collective. And we are, I think we're nearly 200 women aged 50 to 80 in that group. It's an amazing group. It's a private group within the Childless Collective online community. And you can find the link for that also on the Gateway Women website. Just click online community and all of the information is there. So thank you, Maria. Thank you, Katrina Emmanuel. You've really, really touched my heart tonight. Kate and Stella, Sue Fagadilek, Sue Newsom, Anne-Marie McQueen. Thank you, everyone. It's been amazing. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.